1 second, and I'll put up the flag, and we'll be ready. We're ready.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag
to the
United
United States of
America,
America,
to the republic,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
justice.
liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Carson,
Here.
Dr. Fike,
Here.
Mr. Polakowski,
Here.
Mrs. Raymond,
Here.
Mrs. Rhodes,
Here.
Mrs. Heather Smith, Mrs. Kristen Smith,
Here.
Mrs. Williams.
Here.
For the record, Mrs. Heather Smith did indicate she would not be present this evening.
And I'd also like to state we're in executive session prior to this meeting for personnel matters. Citizens' comments?
I do not have any at this time.
Appointment of new board member.
We have two candidates, a Mrs. Nicola Rear and a Mr. Jan Kiefer.
Could you please bring Mrs. O'Rear in for her statement?
Sure. Down and you'll be able to see the board.
Thank you. Hi. Okay. Good evening, Southmoreland School Board Directors. I'm extremely humbled and to have this opportunity to present myself to you as a nominee for the current vacant position. It took me quite some time to sit and analyze myself to the degree of what would be considered a competent school board director. I listed all my accomplishments, my volunteer time and efforts, my work ethic, my stance in politics, my education, but it just didn't seem like it was enough. I took a step back and realized the most competent thing I've ever done in my life is being a mother. That's my drive, that's my passion, is being a mom. It is my number one most highly achieved position. It has made me who I am today. I'm a mother of two beautiful daughters. I'm a wife of a United States Marine. My family and I have been a resident of the Southmoreland School District since 2013. Those 8 years have made this girl one big, very big Scotty fan. Sorry, I kind of doubled the words there. In the last 8 years, I have called this district my home, and I'm proud of it. I have volunteered and dedicated my time as a youth softball coach with the GSGSL organization. I have held various officer positions with parent organizations of Southmoreland sports, and have spent the last 4 years as a secretary for our Southmoreland Girls Softball Association. I would like to give a quick shout out to our Southmoreland softball team as they won today against North Catholic, 11-5. They're headed to semifinals. I serve our communities on a daily basis and have taken a sworn oath to do so with integrity, honesty, and dignity. Those three core principles are what I can and will bring to the Southmoreland School Board. I have strong values in my work ethic, my ability to work with a team, along with my communication and leadership skills. I take great pride in having the confidence that if appointed, together we can lead this district and its communities to a successful and brighter future. Thank you, and go Scotties.
Thank you, Mrs. O'Rear. Mrs. Carson, can you bring in the next candidate?
Here you go. And you are live and we can hear you. Go ahead and start.
Thank you. Good evening, it's Jan Kiefer. And so why me? School boards are designed to function best when they are not homogenous. Even with a healthy mix of personalities and complementary perspectives, it can be a challenge, but the whole of the board becomes greater than the sum of the individual members when you have true diversity. And I bring that different factor to this process. What really brings me to this moment is the great affection I hold for children, in large part because they are being put upon, receiving a subpar education, and they are voiceless. There are nefarious powers at work that see our children as a profit stream. These forces have all but captured public education. To name just a few, and not the most important, would be the industries that want to create an obedient worker personality, the teachers' unions that place their interest above student rights, and the medical industry is responsible for the undeniable poor health status of today's youth. These nefarious forces, along with others, need to be called out. Also, what needs called out is the anemic community involvement. My selection tonight would allow me to impress upon the board and the community the urgencies of these call-outs. So here's my perspective.
You're back on. Go ahead.
You're
good.
Okay. So here's my perspective. Child labor was directly prohibited by law in America in 1949. Compared to the strides made by other human rights movements like the women's movements and the race movements, child rights are still stuck in 1949. Accepting this uncomfortable truth entails that we as adults have some real painful changes to make. I'm the opposite of a one-issue board candidate. I have a pretty good understanding of the Southmoreland raw data, the finances, the property tax, the test scores, enrollment, student-teacher ratio. I can get those facts. I'll just touch on a few. I might have time. We have to realize under the finances, we have to look at other economic models than the growth model as the only model out there. Our test scores showed that we were in trouble before COVID, and our remediation is going to be an uphill battle. So in closing, attending board meetings for years and years, often being the only one in attendance, offered me the ability to gain insights even board members could not make because they were busied with the nuts and bolts of the meeting. No one else can bring a credential like this to this appointment process. If this turns out to be my night, I anticipate my contribution to Southmoreland education will be one of the masterpieces of my public service endeavors. Finally, in light of how many times I have addressed this board, I feel I need little more in the form of introduction. Questions would be nice, and if not, I would just like to leave you with this thought that as the Buddha teaches, I am not attached to the outcome of this process. And I'd like to thank you all for the work that you give for the students of our community.
Thank you, Mr. Kiefer.
You're welcome. Can we watch this process?
Okay, I would like to open up the nominations to fill the vacancy of the unexpired term ending on the first Monday of December after the November 2021 general election caused by the resignation of Amy Love, who had been appointed to the unexpired term of Charles Fry. Are there any nominations?
I nominate Jan Kiefer.
Are there any other nominations?
I nominate Nicole Rear.
Okay, so both candidates have been nominated. I need a motion to close the nominations.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
So if anybody wants to make a comment on the candidates, they are able to do so now.
I just wanted to thank them both for coming out and speaking to the board. It takes a lot of courage to do this, and I appreciate both of their willingness.
I would like to commend Jan Kiefer for coming to school board meetings for more than 10 or 11 straight years. Very, very often, he was the only person who showed up, who showed any interest in our schools over the years. And I really appreciate that, Jan, and I hope that you will continue to do that and serve us accordingly.
Is there any other comments? Okay, I need a roll call vote.
Mr. Carson votes for.
Nicole O'Rear.
Dr. Fike votes for.
Jan Kiefer.
Mr. Polakowski votes for.
Mrs. O'Rear.
Mrs. Kristen Smith votes for.
Mrs. O'Rear.
Mrs. Raymond votes for.
Nicole O'Rear.
Mrs. Rhodes votes for.
Nicole O'Rear.
Mrs. Williams votes for.
Mrs. O'Rear.
Mrs. O'Rear is officially our new school board member.
Thank you, Mrs. Tarson.
Does the nominee wish to be sworn in tonight?
Yes, I'll do that now.
Thank you.
exciting day.
Congratulations.
Yeah. I'm so
If you
excited.
want to put your stuff down and raise your right hand, please.
You may see me.
Yeah, there you are.
Okay.
I, Nicole O'Rear,
I, Nicole O'Rear,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support,
that I will support,
obey, and defend
obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and that I will discharge
and that I will discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Thank
Can I
you.
please have you sign right there?
Yes, ma'am. I don't even know if I can sign. I'm so excited.
All right. If everyone would like to see, Mrs. O'Rear has been sworn in as our school board member.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Welcome.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I need a motion to suspend the rules to change the order of the meeting. Would somebody like to make a motion? I need a second.
I'll
Second.
Agreement for architectural services for Eccles Architecture Group for district paving and track and tennis courts.
Mrs. Williams, did you,
Yes.
I didn't hear a voice vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so again, this is the agreement for architectural
No
service.
discussion, no discussion.
I'm sorry, go ahead, discussion,
No
Dr.
discussion, Chris, no discussion, right?
Discussion, Dr. Fike.
Thank you, thank you. Why are we showing preference to one individual as opposed to other people who have to wait to be heard in their turn?
I do believe that we do not have anybody else from an outside entity that is involved in our meeting this evening. And all, whatever. But
My question, why are we giving preference to one individual?
I was being cognizant of the guest speaker's time. There's nobody else on this agenda that is speaking from the outside. It is mostly us. The only other people that would be speaking at the end of the meeting.
This is money in their pocket and they're getting preference.
They're here for services for Southmoreland School District.
They're here for money.
They're here because they were requested to be here, Dr. Fike.
They should follow the agenda.
Moving on. Mr. Masha, did you want to,
Sorry, I was muted.
that's okay.
Board approves desired options corresponding to types of projects desired. There is a listing of the projects desired. Mr. Scheller is here this evening to shed some light on the projects. Later, this item will be up for a vote before the board. So at this time, I would ask Mr. Scheller that if there's anything that he might be able to elaborate or expound on, that please do so.
Okay, thank you, Vince. So we've been asked to assist you with various projects, and they're basically paving improvement projects. They're located at three different sites. One would be your elementary middle school campus. One would be your high school campus. And then up at the stadium, we have the tennis courts that need resurfaced and the fencing repaired, and we have the track resurfacing. So those are the 4 projects that we could assist you with as you explore options for getting bids to perform the repairs to those. We met a week or so ago with Dave Patonic, Vince, Charlie Basham, myself, and HF Lens Engineering, who is a civil engineer who I have incorporated onto our team to assist you. We spend quite a bit of time talking about your options and talking about your needs. We walked the sites. We were able to look at firsthand what some of the paving needs are and some of the deficiencies that have, occurred over the years. And so we're comfortable with the scope. We understand the scope of what those repairs would need to be. So we're able to prepare our proposal that you are considering this evening. The elementary middle school paving is primarily focused on your drive that is around the rear of the building. There is significant water damage over the years. And if you go way back, actually, my very first project with Southmoreland was the elementary middle school project. And that roadway back to the rear part of the building towards the rear end of the middle school was not included in that project. It was relatively good paving at the time. So that was removed from the project in order to maintain some, some value and reduce the budget for that project. We did some minor repairs that were as a result of construction activities damaging that road. So there were some superficial or surface repairs done to that roadway, but it has seen better days and it's at the end of its useful life. So that roadway going to the rear has water damage. It has some delamination of the paving. And so we were able to, that's kind of the primary scope at the elementary and the middle school. There are various areas, actually there's some other locations there. The dumpster is located in an area where it's on asphalt paving at the moment. So the trucks coming in to access the dumpsters, their brakes and their tires are, kind of wearing out and causing the depressions in the asphalt. So we would address that as well. We would address some accessibility. All of the new work would then provide for accessible tie into the curb ramps and the sidewalk ramps up to the entrances to the building as well. At the high school, there is significant paving deficiencies there as well. So it's the same thing to deal with the asphalt and work with, tearing out the bad asphalt, putting in new, making sure that the sub base is adequate for the loading, the type of vehicular traffic that accesses that site. In addition to the paving, the asphalt paving at the high school, there's also the concrete sidewalks. There are some tripping hazards around the sidewalks, and it's basically just unlevel conditions between the slabs. It's called differential settlement. So there are two different elevations of the slabs. And so that can catch a toe or a heel as people are walking along the sidewalk. So we would consider replacing some of those sidewalk slabs. We're going to look at a couple options with you, but there is an option that Charlie has a quote for grinding those concrete surfaces down. The only concern we have with grinding the concrete surface down is it sometimes brings the reinforcing or the rebar or the welded wire mesh of those concrete slabs up to the surface of the slab. So it has more exposure to the freeze thaw process as well as damage from water and ice melt material. So we'll consider all of that. So those, that's all included in some of the exploration that we'll do with your administrative team and facilities team. The tennis courts, there are significant cracking through the tennis courts, and that is partially due to water getting underneath the tennis courts and causing those to either rise or fall depending on the freeze-thaw cycle and how that water is being treated. But one of the most significant issues at your tennis courts is that the foundations for the fencing, that's a 12-foot high fence, so there's a lot of lateral movement by the wind. You wouldn't see it necessarily, but over the wind coming over the hilltop there is causing those fencing posts to move. We determined when we were reviewing the conditions on the site that the foundations, the footings underneath the fence is not adequate. It's not extending deep enough to get past the frost line. So part of the recommendation of the scope of work would be to replace the foundations under the fence, replace the fence, resurface the tennis courts, deal with the cracking, and then also be able to, put a new surface on it, deal with some of the weeds and some of the growth that's coming up through those. So it would be leaving you with basically a brand new tennis court. We're going to work with, we always take an approach that we're going to reuse as much as of the substructure and the sub base that we can to save you costs. One of the parts of exploring that and understanding how much is able to be reused is to get some geotechnical borings underneath the slab. So we would have to do that. That would be a professional service. We'll solicit that for you, just like we did for hazardous materials and moisture testing for the roof at the primary center. We'll do that on your behalf and get you some proposals for consideration. But geotechnical borings will help us really understand the scope of work that we need to do to repair the tennis courts. And finally, your fourth project is resurfacing of your track surface. We have a couple proposals, and Mr. Patonic can elaborate on this a little bit further, but Charlie has already received proposals from AstroTurf to repair the track, and it is not a full tear off and a repair and a milling and a resurfacing. It's actually a coating system over top of your existing track surface. The slab underneath the track surface, the colored section that you see, the asphalt that's under it, appears to be in really good condition. So we don't see a need to do any scraping and scarification of the track surface itself or the asphalt. It's in good shape. So we really just need to get you a new resilient coating on top of that track surface. So there's a couple options as far as how to proceed with that work. One option, and I'm going to backtrack for a second. We also from AstroTurf received a quote to repair the tennis courts and not repair the fencing. So it's not the whole scope of work that we would see for the tennis courts, but it does include everything you would need to consider for the track resurfacing. So they do that through a co-stars or a state contract scenario where they have already had their numbers previously bid through the Department of General Services. So their price through the state contract or the co-star system is already the best that they've already negotiated that. So it takes out the scenario of bidding, the competitive bidding that we oftentimes do for your projects. It's already been bid. The benefit of the state contract is that you can do it a little bit faster. You don't necessarily need to do the traditional 3 weeks of advertisement, the bidding phase of 3 to 4 weeks, maybe the consideration, the contract negotiation at the end. They basically work through a purchase order. And you can set up all the terms and your conditions through that purchase order, so you're still being protected. I don't know if it suits Dave's, desires on that. He did get some information from AstroTurf today to help him address his concerns about protecting the district, in the co-stars scenario. So that's an option that you have to consider this evening that you wouldn't need Eccles or HF Lens to assist you with. It would be strictly dealing with AstroTurf through the state contract and getting a purchase order for them to do that work. So I think that's our fee proposal 5. If you do want to engage us for all 4 of the projects, that's our fee proposal 5. That's in the proposal that you have before you as well. And then the first 4 fee proposals are basically just to do maybe just an a la carte scenario. If you want to just look at the high school paving, just look at the tennis courts, just look at the elementary school, you could hire us to do that. You would hire Eccles and HF Lens. We would do our traditional service to you where we would do due diligence. We would talk to your team. We would explore materials and options, communicate that to your team, and then do the official bidding and contract award. Also, then assist you through construction phase. We'd come down, make sure that things are being constructed based on the documents, process all the submittals, the payment applications, the project closeout as well, making sure that everything is done as you deserve and as you had bid. So there's quite a few fee proposals in that, but we wanted to really give you the option to, kind of consider what projects you might want and how you might want to use us. I will say that in fee proposal 5 and 6, 6 is to do all 4 projects to use us. because there's some redundancy of work, we could simplify the specification process, because we could bid multiple projects together and we could utilize some of the same specifications and even some of the same drawings. So Eccles and HF Lens is giving you a discount if you do multiple projects, and that's option 5 and 6. So I don't know if I went too fast, if I confuse you, let me know. You do have the paperwork that kind of supports what we talked about, but we'd love to help you in whatever capacity you need. The paving needs work. It doesn't have much time left as far as useful life. So, if you could kind of start to phase that into your operations and your maintenance budgets, that would be a good thing to do. I think we gave you some options. So at this point, any questions on what I presented or my proposal? I'd be able to help you with those.
Mr. Scheller, can I ask you a question about the roof at SPC? I'm sorry, I know that wasn't part of this.
No, absolutely.
But there was a little bit of confusion last week. So there were some highlighted areas, and then you say, I think the sections in the middle of 3 and 4 are bad, but you couldn't do the middle of 3 and 4. You'd have to do all of 3 and 4. Could you elaborate a little bit about that? Like, I'm assuming the yellow highlighted sections are still the worst sections. They would be worse than the middle of 3 and 4?
Not necessarily. So I do want to go back, as I was preparing for my meeting this evening, I just wanted to give you a summary of the SPC roofing project. I had something reversed in my yellow section. So if you're kind of familiar with the building, there was an addition put on most recently. It's still not very new, but the addition to the front of the building, I had that section yellowed instead of alternate bid section 1. So it was a 4,000 square foot section versus a 10,000 square foot section. So I sort of wanted to backtrack on that, but Michelle, getting to your question, section 3 and 4 is your long classroom wing. And the way that those roofs are, if you look at like on the screen, on the outside face of the building, the roofs slope down and then they're flat in the center. So that center is the flat section. So that's where all your water drains to get to your roof drains. And that's over the center of that portion. If we were only to replace the center, there's no good way to tie in that new insulation that we'd need to put on, because it's actually going to be, it could be 3 to 5 inches thicker than the existing insulation that's remaining on the other sides. So there's no good way to transition that. If I had my way and money wasn't an issue, and this is all, I'm sensitive to that, it's tough. I really would recommend the long classroom wing being prioritized as well. The concern and the issue that kind of supports that recommendation from me is that the moisture test that we got said that way back in, I think it was 2007, they did a moisture testing. The exact same firm did the moisture testing for that portion of the building. You were having some water issues over top of your existing roof, and that was a built-up roof, modified bitumen roof. It was already wet at that time. So we don't know, and we believe that it was never repaired at that time, and the moisture was still encapsulated within the spray foam. So what are we compounding if we just do the center area? So I kind of really think that the best scenario for you would be to do the base bid area, alternate bid area 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 is just a canopy over the entrance. It's not over an interior space. You could eliminate 6, so I would say you would not do 2 and 6, because 2 is your most recent roof. It's over metal deck. It has the best insulation, and it didn't have any moisture issues come up in the moisture testing. I know that's a lot of roof. You're only left with a couple areas, about 5,000 square feet of area remaining. The main concern that I have is the roofing report said that it kind of classified, they grade it from an A to a F, I think, and it was a grade D. So it said that your overall roofing system only had about 2 to 4 years of useful life left, because once the insulation is saturated, it's just going to start to migrate through the other insulation that is dry at this point. So, you know, you're in a tough situation. You have a building that you don't necessarily know the fate of, but you also have, you know, a roofing scenario that is kind of challenging. It's the end of its life. I will say that my lowest scenario on the bid information that I gave to Dave last week was about $700,000 to replace the entire roof. And that's, it kind of aligns with what the roofing or what the moisture testing. Interesting enough, the moisture testing company is also a roofing company. They just have partner companies and they work off of one another. So their estimate on the entire roof, that's all sections, would be $710,000. So I was happy with my low number, which was about $20 a square feet. That is what I've bid at most recently. But like I said in my email to Dave before your last meeting, it is so hard to know what the market is going to bear. And unfortunately, I haven't done other roofing projects yet this year. Yours would be the first one that I bid, so I don't even have a good market trend to look at. So that's why I went to 20, 25, and 30. You will more than likely get an economy of scale and we'll know this after we receive the bids. I'll go over all this with you. We'll know if there's an economy of scale. If they want to do the whole roof, they're going to give you a better value on it than cherry picking it. That's usually how the roofers like to do it. They want to get on there. They want to know that they have a substantial work. So you could very well realize that lower unit cost of the $20 a square feet. So that's really what we're tracking for. That's a lot of information, but I did want to give you the, and the good news is we do not have hazardous materials. None of the existing roofing has hazardous materials. So that's excellent news. The pipe fittings inside of the building, so you have the roof drain and then you have pipes that come down inside, that has asbestos material in it, but our goal is not to even impact that with the roofing work. We're gonna have a pre-bid next week. I'll go over that with the roofers and make sure that they're comfortable doing the drain work from outside, but I don't think you have any hazardous materials to deal with. Furthermore, even though you do have hazardous materials at your drain fitting, it is never touched. It's above the ceiling, you know, so it's basically an encapsulated material. So it's nothing of a health concern for anyone within the building. So that was really good news on the hazardous materials. Moisture testing was what you've all expected. You saw that, you know, you had issues with the water and that. So it was good to just get that formalized and have that as a document we can refer back to. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Scheller. Does anybody else have any questions for Mr. Scheller?
I think I do.
Okay.
Just to be clear, I think that Mr. Polakowski was present with the group that did the tour of the sites. And in fact, I think he was able to go to the high school and I was not.
Yeah, he absolutely was.
I think a concern which may underlie a lot of the financial considerations here is that I think the engineer indicated, and I'm not sure if I'm understanding the difference. You, Mr. Scheller, you had brought up the geotechnical, which I believe is to the base. I think he also mentioned doing core samplings.
That's the same thing. Yeah, it's the same thing, Dave. Yeah.
Okay. Now, he had mentioned the possibility of the tennis courts being undermined. And I guess the question is whether, you know, maybe the district should be pursuing that information or that kind of testing before committing to doing specifications if the results of that would indicate a substantial problem that would, you know, add to an already expensive project.
My response to that would be that they can go complementary to one another. So the geotechnical information, the core borings, you know, they're one and the same. They would be around the site up there. They would also be through the slab to find out if there is any undermining, because if water gets underneath the slab, it has to go somewhere. So if it's going to migrate back into the ground slowly, vertically, that's fine. But if it's going to wash out, then you do get those voids underneath the slabs. So that is something that we would definitely want to do. I think that I don't think anything would complicate the scope of work that would make us need to have any additional fee or any considerations as far as the proposal for our services to look at the tennis courts. We talked briefly about whether there was another potential location for the tennis courts, and that comes up with quite a bit more work. You would need to do the sub base, the compaction of the soil, gravel underneath, new slab, new wearing course, and new fencing. So you have a lot of value still in your tennis courts because, you know, there is ground to work with. There is maybe some reconfiguration of gravel or addition of a little bit of gravel. So at the culmination of that conversation, when we were together discussing these projects, we did determine between myself and the engineer, we really do feel that your existing tennis courts have a good value for you, and that let's just deal with some of the issues that are there as opposed to relocating them to another site. It's also nice, you do have an athletic complex up there. You know, granted your stadium is elsewhere, but you really do have a nice, there's parking there. It's fully accessible. It's really a really good location for your tennis courts. I'd be hard pressed to find another one around the district as we're looking at it. So I really think that the geotechnical information is going to be absolutely necessary for Echols and HF Lens to write the specs for the tennis courts anyway. So I think they're complementary to one another. So I don't think one needs to go before the other. We're going to need to do them simultaneously, basically. And I think that the geotech, it's going to approximately be about $5,000, maybe less than that, given that we don't need to core. Here's the thing, the geotech is going to help us with the tennis courts, the paving, at both the high school and the elementary middle school. So it's something that is going to be a really good value to you to find out what is going on underneath the surface. So the tennis courts is only one component of the geotechnical, but I had 14 borings done for Grove City School District over the last month. HF Lens was also the engineer, so we evaluated the locations of those, and it ended up being $5,500 for all of those borings, including a report, including consultation time with the geotechnical engineer. So that's kind of the range of the cost you're looking at for the geotechnical services.
I sort of sense that there may be, you know, concerns with the board about trying to undertake all of these projects simultaneously because of budget constraints. And that was part of the reason why I brought that up.
Right on.
So, and I don't know, I guess my, you know, non-engineering mind is that if the geotechnical borings came back and were indicating that the tennis court was in an area that was going to require a lot of additional remediation, for lack of a better term, that perhaps the school board, you know, would not even want to pursue doing specifications at this time.
Right.
And maybe not attempt it in this cycle of work. So that was one reason why I brought that up.
That's a good point. You could certainly, we could solicit geotechnical borings as part of the paving projects and include the tennis courts as well. Gather that information, look at it, consult with it, but you wouldn't need to, maybe you don't hire us for that portion, that fee proposal for the tennis courts this evening, and then we could always do that down the road as well. You know, that I'm going to hold that fee for you. HF Lens will hold that fee indefinitely until you make your decision on that as well. So that's something that if you just, you know, you still wanted to consider your options and see what the scope would be, maybe you don't hire us for that this evening, and we're always available to help you with it. So, you know, potentially you may want to do the paving at the high school and the elementary school. I'm speculating. I'm not, you know.
And just to put this on the table, this is unfortunate, but in one way it's good to have information, but it's either, you know, it's awkward trying to deal with it. This came in after we went to board docs, and in fact came in today. I went and looked at the CoStar's website for the contract that the AstroTurf folks had committed to for being on CoStar's. And I had a series of questions as a result of that. And so I sent a email this morning to Mr. Kernick and copied you in, and then he responded. And in some ways it was helpful in answering some of my concerns, clarifying in particular, because the language in their form was contradictory about prevailing wage. And he now says, and that we could write this into a contract, that we included prevailing wages in our proposal and no other wage costs will incur. The problem area is the way they specified the contract to us was REKORTAN space capital letters RS. And the contract site for CoStars uses a numbering system. I'm not sure if it's related to the thickness of the material that is to be applied or exactly what. So he sent me that literature today. I honestly didn't even have time to go through it. And I'm feeling really uncomfortable about this because I think the people who, met with you, Mark, that day, my memory is that maybe this track was going to be a project for next spring rather than trying to do it this summer. And in your comment, and apparently the somewhat availability, I shouldn't say somewhat, but the near-term availability of AstroTurf is that theoretically they could do it this summer. But I also asked the question about how soon do they need to know, and it's roughly 2 weeks. So we're sort of caught in an awkward situation here where we still have some technical questions about their proposal that is through CoStars on the one hand, whether or not the school board wants to do that project this summer, put it off till next spring, or maybe not even do it at all. But I think, you had indicated pretty good reasons why it does need to be done either this summer or next spring, in order so that it doesn't become a greater problem. Right now, we're at the point where we don't have to worry at the track level about worrying about the surface underneath the top material. It's still pretty good shape. Is that right? What we think?
Yeah.
But if you let it go too long, then it's going to get a lot more expensive because you have to start working on that undersurface. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you might have to do a milling, down to the asphalt and then put a new tack coat, a primer, and then, building up. That surface that you have now has two surfaces, a rubber kind of a resilient course and then a wearing course on top of it. Now you're building up on top of that. And Charlie had provided some photographs of the sections. They did some cores of that and it looks very, it's good, it's thick, it's exactly the millage that we would expect. So that's fair, fair statement, Dave, as well. And
I guess our other problem is, I asked, but I don't know if the district ever got proposals from other track installers, just informally. I thought they had, but I don't have any. Do you know the answer to that, Mr. Masha?
I thought that it was only CoStars, like this company, because it is CoStars. I thought
that may be, yeah. And so that raises the question.
Mr. Basham would know, and he's on here.
Okay.
Yeah, I just got on. Apologize.
That's okay.
Lee, I believe, started on it before he left. The only people that I spoke to was the people, that we're talking to now, and it was through CoStars. But as far as anybody but them, I really have never spoken to anyone.
There are other track resurfacing companies that are part of the CoStar network as well. AstroTurf's not the only one, but it always comes back to the timing, and it may not be a desire to do it this summer anyways. We're really pushing the envelope for getting work into the summer. So if we pump the brakes and we look at some options, that would certainly be the option. We could bring in ATA. There's a few other, the names escape me right now, but there are other surfacing, and we could still do it through CoStars. We just get those pricing like Lee did and Charlie provided to us for AstroTurf. So there is still a process we could go through, but it would probably take longer and prohibit us, because we always have to work to a board meeting schedule as well. That's what we always do, so if we're not going to have that for this evening's meeting. So we're already going to be a month, into the next this decision. So maybe it is just best to consider that for next year. Material prices might level out, maybe, I don't have a crystal ball, but it could certainly settle out and be good value next year as well.
I wanted to bring this out because I don't want to be the decision maker saying, we'll only take this one proposal. And it may be that we, don't do formal bidding, but go through CoStars, but still try to solicit proposals from the other potential CoStar suppliers. I think there's like 17 on that list that I saw. And, I don't want to be the one to go through there and say, well, okay, this is the best one, or this is the only one. That's part of my discomfiture with, I don't want to be pushing that on the school board that that's the only way to go. But I think the other consideration is likewise, if you really want to do it this summer, I wanted you to be aware of that. If you think that it still might be possible, even though it takes a little bit to go into the fall, I think the indication here is that, just so you have this information, our work is weather dependent and cannot work if there's rain or chance of rain, along with temperatures at least in the 60s for cure times. So you can't go too far into the fall. Having said that, we're having an average season. If we can get to school on the schedule within 2 weeks, we feel this can be a late summer or early fall. It solely depends on the weather. 2 years ago, we had record amounts of rain, which pushed our schedule back considerably. So, it could be if you get the fall, we don't know if we're going to have heavy rain. It's another problem.
Mr. Pisani.
I'm sorry.
So
That's it.
the reason that we would use CoStar, which just so I'm clear and everyone else is as well, I'm assuming CoStar is a organization. I'm guessing.
It's a state.
Yes.
It's a state program.
Correct. That has state vetted companies who can do these jobs, and that eliminates us having to do the bidding process, correct?
Well,
So
it eliminates the part of it that is the formal public advertising.
Right.
You could send specifications to people on that list, some or all of them, and then choose from those.
But my point is,
would be another possibility.
These are state approved, cleared, vetted places. You're making a face like they're not.
Well, when you say vetted, I mean, it's not like the state goes and inspects their projects or things like that. They have to pay a fee. They have certain qualifications.
Correct.
So you see a lot of names on there that are familiar to you that are, major operators. So that's a plus.
So it would save time, money, possibly.
It might save time. It might save money, but it doesn't always save money. There are some instances where bidding actually gets you a better price. But my point is, even if you decide not to do bidding, you could still seek proposals from, several of them that are considered to be, the quality installers, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Let me add, I want to add two benefits of CoStars as well. And I'm not a proponent to it. Dave is absolutely right. You can get better prices bidding because they take an average. But here's the two more benefits is you do not need to take the low bid or the low price for CoStars. So let's say that we had some name we never recognized before, but then you had ATA and AstroTurf or Field Turf. You know that that second highest number is better. You can take that, but then you can also negotiate with the CoStar's vendor. I did a project, an entire stadium project for Cambria Heights School District, and we did through CoStar's. They were about $300,000 above budget, what they wanted to do. And we went with CoStar's. We didn't take the low number and we negotiated that down. They have about, this is not, they don't really tell you this, but through a couple of conversations with people, they said they have about 20% to work with to still make their profit. So, you know, you don't always take advantage of them to that effect, but let's say that you do have a number in mind and you do have a CoStar's approved vendor that you want to work with. There is some flexibility, more so than bidding, where you have to take the low bid and it could be someone that is a huge risk for you. So just wanted to elaborate on that a little bit, Christy. That's what we
I think my other point is that even if you go the CoStar's route, I mean, I don't think I should be the one picking the specification as to the type of material and the thickness and those sorts of things. So you have a proposal, but you know, I'm not, you know, I'm not an engineer. I can't tell you that that's the best or the most cost efficient material way to go. I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm done.
Has somebody asked you to do that?
No, I'm feeling the time pressure that it, and I just want all this on the table. So you know this tonight.
I understand.
Rather than waiting, you know, a month from now and finding out, oh, we missed a window of opportunity.
Okay.
Does anybody
Mr. Scheller, that answered that very well. Thanks.
Okay, great.
Does anybody have any other questions for Mr. Scheller?
I don't have any questions for Mr. Scheller, but I have some comments later.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Scheller. If you're needed later, is Mr. Masha able to contact you? I'm sorry, it's already 8 o'clock, so I don't have any idea what time that would be.
Yeah, that's fine. I will, if he has to wake me up, he can. Just give me a call and I'll log back in and I'll join back in with you guys.
Thank you.
Okay, all right.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, thank you all.
I need a motion to go back into executive.
I can't make my comments. I can't make my comments now that he's gone.
I need a motion to go back into executive session, and we'll pick back up whenever we come back out, because we do have some other discussion about that, Dr. Fike.
I will make the motion to return to executive session.
You need a second.
Second.
This is for personnel.
This is for personnel matters. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Do I need discussion here, Mr. Petonic?
Yes, you could ask. I didn't hear
Is there
anything.
is there any discussion? Okay, Mr. Masha, everybody a new link for executive. So if everybody else, just board members are needed in executive, Mrs. Tarson and Mr. Petonic. And then we'll be rejoining this meeting. Thank you.
Should we be closing out of this?
We are closing out of this, but it will remain open for members that are still there. Dr. Claire has put a sign up. Thank you.
How do I do that?
They're going to come and help you.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm like, this is so,
know. We got a spread all out.
it's a lot.
Leave this.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I think we don't have Mr. Carson. Dr. Clara, do you see him trying to get in? There's,
I just saw Miss Raymond. I don't see.
okay.
I'm keeping my eyes open for him, but I haven't seen him yet. I think I saw Miss Raymond come in. Mr. Pushkar and I are keeping an eye out for him. He's co-hosting with me tonight, so as soon as he comes in, we'll be ready.
Mrs. Smith, do you have that link handy again?
Yeah.
Can you send it to Mr. Carson?
Seriously? I mean, yes.
Sorry.
He generally joins from an iPhone, so he may have trouble navigating.
Am I like, is it really dark on my screen?
Yes. Okay. I can see, there it is, it's better.
Okay.
He's having some trouble getting logged on. He says it's just spinning. I told him to go out and come back in. I'll give him another minute, and if not, we'll get started. Mr. Pushkar or Dr. Claire, are you able to see him yet?
I don't see him yet.
Funny if I was sending them the wrong link.
I resent it just
Oh,
to
good.
be sure.
Oh, there he is.
Okay, great. I need a motion to go back into regular session.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Minutes of the following board meetings.
The board is asked to consider the approval of the minutes of special meeting of March 31st, 2021, and the meetings of April 8th, 2021, and April 15th, 2021.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
You need a second.
I'll second.
Discussion. Voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? General Fund Board Summary Report as of 4/30/2021.
Board is asked to consider the approval of the April 2021 general fund check listing.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
Second.
So Mrs. Raymond was first and Mr. Carson was second.
Thank you.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Dr. Fike,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear, unmute.
I'll get the hang of that. Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes,
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
April 1st, 2021 to April 30th, 2021 fund accounting check summary listing.
Board is asked to consider the approval of the April 1st, 2021 to April 30th, 2021 fund accounting check summary listing.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Dr. Fike,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes,
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
March 2021 monthly board treasurers report.
Board is asked to consider the approval of the March 2021 treasurer's report.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion. I'll second it.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. O'Rear,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes,
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Dr. Fike,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Superintendent report.
I know that we have a large agenda ahead of us. Mr. Krofchuk only asked for a brief minute to discuss graduation.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks everyone for giving me this opportunity. I just wanted to touch base with graduation. We are scheduled and ready to roll for June 4th at the stadium. Today we did some tests on the sound system with Mr. Brown, who installed the system that we currently have. We're going to run a pretty similar event to what happened the last time we had commencement outdoors, which was 2002. And we're not, just to kind of put this succinctly, we're not equipped to do outdoor commencements because we have traditionally, I think, tried to do some research today, at least in the last 25 years, have not had an outdoor commencement with the exception of 2002. And it was actually cut short by a microburst that led to an indoor commencement at the end. So using yearbook pictures, we're going to set it up the way that we did in 2002. We don't have a stage, as I said, because we're not equipped. So we're going to kind of make it look very similar to 2002. What I would like to maybe put forth in front of the board is this potential option for discussion, that if we see a large chance for rain on June the 4th, what would be the willingness or what would be community input or board input on the fact, instead of waiting for a rain date June 5th and with the easing of the restrictions on May 31st, to simply move it indoors the morning of? Is that something the board would want to consider? I don't want to unilaterally make that decision and say June 4th, 100% chance of rain. Or are we going to try to risk it? Let's move it indoors. I would kind of like to have some feedback and input from the board and community on that.
I have a quick question about when it's being held in the stadium. Are students being given a particular number of tickets of people who can attend? Because then how would that translate if we then had to move it inside?
We are initially issuing 10 tickets, okay? That would give us the ability to move it indoors with slight overflow into the cafeteria. So with the issuance of 10 tickets, you could comfortably seat 8 as a family indoors if all 130 students participate, because the likelihood of that happening is very slim. We always have at least 4 or 5 kids that just don't participate, so their tickets go unused. So we were anticipating about 8 would do in the initial auditorium seating with overflow in the cafeteria, because our auditorium capacity is a little over 1,100. In terms of families that, you know, need more tickets, let's say at the stadium, let's say that the weather is beautiful. As always, we work with people, we work with families that don't have or are not utilizing their tickets, or we try to work through that internally to make that happen. So I think we can accommodate both. I just like to be a step ahead in the event that we do see that it's raining. There's a lot that goes into it to have rain-soaked people, and then you're kind of then just committed to one date, and then you know the next day is already freed up. We'll make both happen if need be. But if you can commit to one date, then you know June 5th is automatically free. Spend time with your family that's in town. You don't have to kind of be ready to go June 4th, and then all of a sudden it rains, and then we have to change plans, and then June 5th rolls around and it rains again, and then we're kind of forced into that scenario anyway. So plan B, I guess would be plan C, is if it rains on June 5th, if we don't go for the indoor option, I think we'll have to kind of force our hand into the indoor unless we want to complete the ceremony in the rain. Or let's just hope like it was for the prom, and it's a beautiful 72-degree day. I thought we were in San Diego with the weather, you know, so hopefully we can get that. But hope is not a strategy, you know.
So your recommendation is outside if it's bad, move to inside the same day.
That would be my recommendation.
Okay. I think that makes sense. I mean, I'm assuming people have graduation parties planned for the next day, even. I mean, I know, I would assume that that would be the best way to go. I don't know what everybody else thinks.
Is the capacity limits at 100% capacity on May 31st? Is that what they're saying? Or is there
Yes.
still some? Okay.
Mr. Krofcheck,
Yes.
what is the like capacity or occupancy limit for the gym? Is that bigger than the auditorium?
The gym, the problem with the gym is it has a horrendous sound system.
Truth.
You know, we have been pressing that issue for years. And I personally, I really think we have an awesome commencement ceremony. I don't want to risk having to muffle it through that. And you know, as a sports parent, you can't hear anything in that gym. And I don't even want to go down that road without probably having to sink a couple grand into renting PA stuff. And it's not climate controlled. So if it's 95 outside, it's going to be 95 in there. But it's probably about the same as the auditorium, maybe a little bit more.
Okay. I would assume the auditorium is definitely more comfortable as far as seating in the audience. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Krofcheck? Okay. Mr. Masha, did you have anything else under superintendent report?
I do not, but I would just like to say that I do support Mr. Croft's recommendation.
I was wondering if we were allowed to say that.
I do.
I support it too. Yeah. As a senior parent, for one, I definitely.
Well, I appreciate the input. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
That is all I have, Mrs. Williams.
Okay, thank you. Business manager budget report. Do you have anything here, Mr. Marnell, or do you want to wait till we get down just a few items to the budget update?
Well, we will work on those updates in a few items. Just want to say the business office is we're progressing towards a year end, making preparations for year end processes, and of course working on preparations for the 21-22 fiscal year, insurance renewals, bids for paper and fuel, so on and so forth. So we're progressing. Thank you.
Thank you. Solicitor report.
I'll defer to the individual items if needed.
Okay. CWCTC report.
No report at this time.
Thank you. Mrs. Smith is not here for the WIU report. ESCA liaison report.
There's no report tonight, Michelle.
Thank you, Mrs. Rhodes. Committee reports. Mr. Paul, is there anything? I think most of buildings and grounds is being discussed throughout the agenda. Do you have anything else?
No, we talked about some of the stuff last week and this week also, so no.
Thank you. Mrs. Smith, do you have anything on personnel?
Yeah, we are continuing to work on a plan for those who are not covered under any contract or agreement, such as security guards, van drivers, nursing assistants, school police. Those people, we are still working on coming to a plan that they can fall under so that they're covered. Also, I did have my COLA meeting this past week, and we had the executive director of PASA, which is the Pennsylvania Association of School Administrators, speak to us. And he went over a lot of information specifically that had to do with legislative issues that have been arising in the Senate committees. One of the big issues that he had discussed is that some of the legislators believe that districts, because of the ESSERS money that they've been given, will be able to move on in funding with flat funding, with us not getting any additional funding from the state. So just like the same as we were given last year and the year before. So a lot of legislators are believing that that would be okay since we have this extra funding from ESSERS money. The problem with that is the mandates for the entire state. So the money that we're mandated to pay out has gone up $1.15 billion for the entire state. So if our state funding stays level, but the mandates keep going up, after this ESSERS money runs out, we're going to fall off a cliff, basically. Mm-hmm. So it would be really important for the state funding to continue to hopefully go up, although it kind of seems unlikely as the mandates keep coming our way. There was a rumor of a 2-year budget for the state, but that's very unlikely, they said. I think they went over some of the different bills that are in the committees. A lot had to do with cyber charter. Some had to do with homeschooling. Some had to do with harassment, different things that have all come out of the committees and are hopefully going to the whole Senate now. So we basically just got an update of where things stand legislatively. Policies, our committee is meeting next Thursday and we are reviewing the 0s, 100s, and 200s. That's it.
Thank you. Mrs. Rhodes, do you have anything for finance?
No, not really. We're more concentrated right now with the budget talk. So no, I don't have anything new, just what we were going to be discussing here.
Okay. I know that Mrs. Smith is the chairperson for athletic and transportation. And she's not here. Mr. Carson, has there been anything in that committee?
Sorry, no, not that I've heard of.
Okay, thank you. And I will be appointing someone else to academic and non-academic. I know that committee has not met. That's all for the committee reports, I believe. Budget updates. Mr. Nash or Mr. Marnell?
Marnell, you ready?
I'm here. Can you?
Can't hear you, Mr. Marnell.
I am unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, well, everyone has the proposed final budget, I believe. It was sent out by email, plus it's a part of the attachment to board documents. And part of the budget includes, as you were talking earlier this evening about certain projects, there's $830,000 to discuss on projects, paving, sidewalks, tennis court, track project, and of course, we've got the roofing project. And what if any of those do we want to keep in for final budget? Now we have time to talk about that between now and final budget adoption, but those are in there, and that has pushed the theoretical deficit to $1.3 million. We have right now in the budget a $13,190,000, 41% of the anticipated revenues from local sources, $17,243,000, or 53% of our revenues anticipated from state revenues. Now, a big caution there is no Commonwealth state budget yet. And we budgeted, let's call it status quo with what we're getting this year, not anticipating an increase. And we have in there potentially $1,949,000 in various federal revenues. And the biggest part of that is the $1.4 million in the ESSERS 2 money. besides Title I, Title II, and Title IV. So a potential possibility of $32,383,359 in revenues. Right now, I'm still looking at a potential break even for this year, not contributing to fund balance, not taking away from fund balance. So right now, our potential fund balance to start the year off would be $3,255,706, of which $868,270 is assigned fund balances, or about 27%. And the unassigned is at $2,387,436, about 73%. Right now, there's in the proposed budget is $33,688,152 in estimated expenditures. Of that, $19,137,000, about 57%, is for instructional expenditures. $9,170,000, 27% for support services. $791,500, 2.3% of the budget in non-instructional services. And of course, as I mentioned a little bit ago, $830,000, or 2.5%, those potential facility capital improvement projects. $2,847,000, or 8.5%, in other expenditures and financial uses, which mostly is bond principal and interest payments. And we have in combined budgetary reserve $910,809, of which $860,809 is those projects that Dr. Clara went over last week, that I have to sit down and code with him into the various unique individual sections by building level. But I have them in there as a holding pattern for right now. They have to be allocated to the proper budgetary categories. So assuming if the budget stayed as it is, and I certainly don't anticipate that, that would leave total fund balances at the end of the year of $1,950,913, with that potential deficit of $1,304,793. Now, if you went ahead and utilized the $830,000 of assigned fund balances towards those projects, let's say, that would leave right now an operating deficit of $436,523. The potential millage rate, as worked into the state program, the budgetary program that you have, the PDE 2028 form, the proposed rebalanced millages for Westmoreland County right now in that proposed final budget stands at 85.9442 for Westmoreland County, 17.4419 for Fayette County. So that's a proposed 2.8942 mill increase on the Westmoreland County side, a 1.2173 millage increase on the Fayette County side. And I have to finish the analysis of homestead and farmsteads for our final budget, and of course for passing our homestead farmstead resolution. But right now, using the average assessed property value here in the Westmoreland County side, which is $16,000, roughly $900, that would equate to roughly a $49 tax increase for the average assessed value in Westmoreland County properties. And the average assessed value on the Fayette County side is $71,370, and that would equate to about an $87 tax increase on that property.
I'm sorry, Mr. Marnell, where are you?
Well, I'm sorry, I'm reading from my source notes.
Oh, okay, okay.
So I'm summarizing various facts, of which I am preparing a document that I will be prospectively sending out for yourselves and for the next public board doc agenda items. But I just wanted to review some of those facts and figures. And then
Mr. Marnell, could you go over those tax increases one more time for
Sure.
Westmoreland County, what they should expect their tax increase should be, and also for Fayette County?
Sure. The proposed rebalanced millages right now in that document for Westmoreland County side is 85.9442. Now, Westmoreland County will round that factor, but right now the program calculates out to 4 decimal points. That's a 2.8942 mil increase on Westmoreland County properties. Now that currently right now the average homestead taxable assessed value on the Westmoreland County side is $16,864. So for the average property value, homestead equates to $48.81 as an average tax hike. On the Fayette County side,
that's per year, correct? 81 more dollars per year.
No, $48.81.
Oh, $48.
$48.81 for next year.
Okay, for the year, not like every month.
No.
Okay.
No. Correct. No, that's the tax bills go out one time a year. So that would be the increase for next year for the average property. Now, for any individual who wants to look at their tax bill, for example, my property is located in Westmoreland County, so we follow the same assessment over the border in Hempfield. For me, that millage increase would equate to $99.85 on my homestead. So, but my taxable assessed value is a little over $35,000. Now, on the Fayette County side, the proposed millage rate would be 17.4419, a 1.2173 millage increase. So right now, the average homestead value on the Fayette County side is $71,370. So for that property, the tax bill would go up roughly $86.88.
Why is that so much higher?
Yeah.
In Fayette County than Westmoreland County? That's just a curious question. I have no idea.
Well, that is a curious question, and part of the answer is the different assessment systems that are in place between the two counties. As you could see, the average assessed value on the Westmoreland County side is $16,864. On the Fayette County side, the average assessed value is $71,370. So you're working with a higher assessed value for a property. Now, also, this program does a multi-county rebalancing methodology, very complex, and I don't think within the scope of my ability tonight to explain it in a brief minute or two. I think it would take a nice hour or so long lecture with me and Mr. Patonic to try to talk through that process. That page you can find in the proposed final budget. You can find that. Let's see. I don't know if you printed it out for yourself, but if you want to, look at it in your email or in the Word doc or board doc, I'm sorry, it would start on page 8 of the proposed final general fund budget. And it works through the algorithms and computations to rebalance the mills. So the program comes up with the proposed new millage rates, and the report shows on the next page, page 9, that the proposed new millage rates are under the Act 1 index. So we did not exceed the index, which we are not allowed to do. How it changes the proportion and rebalances the tax burden between communities is a complex discussion for time, perhaps when we have more time to discuss it. But it is a good question.
Anybody have any more discussion?
So did we find out if some of these other things were able to be paid for with ESSER's money? Because, and I guess my second part of that question is, at what point do we put in the ESSER's 3 money, which is what, about $4 million that'll be coming in?
Yes. We are currently, I know that Dr. Clara has been spending a lot of time trying to determine, and Mr. Marnell and actually Mr. Patonik and I, it's pretty ambiguous right now as to what ESSER 3 expenditures are going to be allowable. So we've been devoting a lot of time to figure that out. And Dr. Clara, I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to elaborate on that. Or
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mash. Thank you. Last week, I was tasked with reaching out to the IU, see if we could speak with their specialist in finances. And I have an appointment to speak with her on Monday to ask our specific questions. I wasn't able to get her this week. We missed each other, but Lynn Liu is her name. Dr. Conway recommended I speak to her about the specific questions that we have for how we could use the money. So I will have more information that I could share out through Mr. Masha on Monday after my phone conference with her. I don't even like to hazard a guess, Mrs. Smith, to be honest with you, because it seems like every time I open my email, there's something coming out that says this district is asking this question and there's not a good answer. And so I don't want to guess. I'd rather be able to say I spoke to somebody who has a little bit better grasp of it or is connected to the folks at the state level and then be able to report back more accurately. So Monday, I feel I'll be able to do that. My phone conference with her is at 11 o'clock. I will write something up and share with Mr. Masha for the board to read after I get it. From my understanding right now, it seems like they kind of released the money and said, okay, do what you did last time. And as I shared with Mr. Masha earlier, the problem with that is if you've already done those things, you can't do them twice. So now what's allowable, right? After you've taken the priorities that we did in ESSER 2 and try to focus on what we need right now. The next question is, what do you do after that? And I think it was Dr. Fike who asked a while back, hey, we have to be careful with it. The good news is that the budget isn't due for a while, but I know that your budget, this year's budget, is due. And so you kind of need that information. I'll go as fast as I can to get it for you, but I'm kind of at the mercy of someone else right now. So I am working it, and I hope to have more information on Monday for you.
And Dr. Clear, just to clarify for the public, like we don't get like a big lump sum payment of the government's like, here's $4 million. They don't just give us that money. We have to go and apply for it and do things to get it. So it's not like we're just getting, someone's just dropping us a bucket of money for us to do whatever we want with, that we have, here to do anything with. We have to initiate applying for those funds. Even though they're allocated to us, we still have to apply for them.
That's correct. So there's a format I have to use in our e-grant system, and I have to make sure that I come up with a zero balance at the end, that whatever we've been allocated is what we're going to spend. It falls under the jurisdictions of the things that they require from us, like 20% must be spent on learning. I think it's learning loss is a requirement for this one. And then they have to approve it. And if there are issues with it, they return it to us, and then they begin the dispersal. So it would not be an immediate turnaround, but it is definitely, if we apply and we follow the protocols, we will get that money. But you have to follow the protocols that they set for us. And I'm real anxious to get started on the ESSERs too. Hopefully you guys have had a chance to look that over, and hopefully you agree with the recommendations of the committee that we made. If you have questions about those, I'll try to answer them. I would be happy to try, but I'd like to get that out of the way so that we can then learn more about what 3 can do and not do. And hopefully I'll be able to make recommendations to the board about the limits of it or the scope of it on Monday after I speak with Lynn Liu from the IU.
So my biggest concern is, and question I guess would be, is I'm assuming there's potential to use some of this money to offset our remaining $461,000 deficit.
It is possible. I wouldn't hazard a guess on yes or no yet, because that's one of my questions is here. Is that supplanting? I don't know. Are the rules going to apply here that have applied in some other federal funding? Maybe not. But I wouldn't want to do all that work and then come back and say, guess what? The rules say I can't do that, or we can't do that. So I want some clarity on it before we move on anything for 3. 2, we know what we needed to do. That was pretty clear to us. But 3 is a larger number, and it seems to be extended over a longer period of time. And so it's a little different. And I just want to make sure that we have it right. It may take us a few more days to get that information. And I apologize. I think everybody's kind of building the airplane in the sky across the state on this, but I would rather be right and not offer or hazard a guess that you come back to me and say, geez, you were way off on that. What were you thinking? I don't know. It's possible, yes, But I will ask that very specific question on Monday, and hopefully she'll be able to respond to it, because the IU kind of is our conduit to the state level guys, and they might be able to say, hey, some other districts that we're not close to or in a similar situation are using it that way. Or maybe they'll tell us, hey, you can't do that. And I'll be able to say that too. I just don't want to guess.
I have included on the bottom portion of my superintendent report 2 documents that Mr. Petonic had supplied earlier. They are some details concerning the ESSER 3 Act. So you might want to peruse, and they're kind of ambiguous, which is causing some problems with us also. Ms. Petonic and I devoted a considerable amount of time the other day just trying to decipher the wording of some of them.
Mr. Master, we also attended a session about a week or 2 ago of people all across the state, and we were in groups and asked questions. But again, it was more talking to other districts and not really any guidance from the state level. It was kind of talking to other people and saying, hey, what are you guys thinking? And idea generating rather than someone giving us guidance whether those ideas were good or not. So I think they kind of wanted to get that information out to us about the amount, but they really have not been very specific yet. And maybe they're not going to be. Maybe that's an advantage to us. But as of right now, they're not very specific on what to do with it.
There was no one suggestion as to guidance at that meeting. Was that correct, Dr. Clare?
Yeah, the IU that hosted it just basically allowed all the districts who wanted to participate to come in and talk about their needs. And we kind of created a document and listed all the ideas that people had. But there was no one saying, hey, those are allowable expenses. Those are not. It was just districts trying to kind of hear what others were running up against and how they were thinking about using it. So that's where we are with it. I promise you that I'm working hard on it, and I've made arrangements to speak with somebody, but it's been tough to get that person. I think they're probably being asked by a lot of people for their advice.
Christy, did I hear you say it was a $400 and some thousand deficit?
I said that there was one, but that is after. We actually have a $1 million deficit. But
okay, yeah, that's why I was confused. Okay.
Yeah, no, he said we'd be offsetting some of that with. We have assigned money in the fund balance that is specifically to be used for cyber schools. So he said
at 800 and some thousand. At 800 and some thousand is assigned.
So I was just going with that.
Yes, we know the ESSERS 3 is over $3 million, possibly 3.2 or more. And you have a longer time period to deal with that. For example, the ESSERS 2, which Dr. Clara has coordinated for the district, has an expenditure period that runs out September 30th of 2022. So we have it included in the 21-22 budget. Now your run out for the ARP, or as we call it, ESSERS 3, runs out September 30th, 2023. So you could look forward and plan the usage of the ESSERS 3 money for your 22-23 fiscal year. So, you have time to dovetail the requirements of how to use these funds into your next budget after next spring when you're planning the 22-23 budget.
Are they still going to make you link that ESSERS money to COVID?
So that's a good question. I think so, Dr. Fike. I don't know that for sure, but because it all came as part of like that series of grants that were based in that. And I know one area that they did recommend is still like the air HVAC, the air systems for schools was an allowable expense to upgrade your HVAC systems. So I'm assuming, and again, I don't know that for certain, that that's all based in the idea that they still want mitigation strategies for COVID-19. That's one of my questions to ask on Monday is, I know that that's an operational possibility, but it should not be the only one. And again, if you were a district that took that step here with ESSERS 2 money to try to upgrade some things, then you wouldn't be doing it again with 3. So I think that's the confusion for us is the 2 is immediate, right? We need to get that stuff done right away. That's for learning loss and what you need to open the school year effectively. Because 3 is extended longer, it's kind of like competing with which one do you want to do now versus which one do you want to do later.
But they did want things related to COVID now, anyhow.
Well, 2 definitely was, like the learning loss was definitely related to it.
About 2, yeah.
Right. And then I assume 3 is also, because it seems to be following in that same pattern from 1 and 2. So I would think that yes, they are going to have some component of it connected. So, but again, I will confirm that for you on Monday.
You can use it for facility updates, correct?
Yes, like the HVAC was one of the areas that a couple of districts talked about, making sure that, in a high school like ours, for example, where there are no interior windows for some of our rooms, the HVAC could be an important component to make sure you're getting fresh air, because you can't open windows in there. The building is designed in a way that's not possible. So they did think about that when they were asking us to consider funding. Hey, for buildings like that, or an old building where the ventilation is poor, you could upgrade it. But the question that we have is, if you don't need those things, what else can it do? And I just don't feel like I have a great grasp on that yet. And I don't, if I'm being honest, and anybody who's watching this at the state level, feel free to call me. I don't really know what they're doing yet. I'm not real clear on what it is and what it's not. So I promise to get clarity on it, but so far it seems like I'm not the only one who's asking questions. And that's why I reached out to somebody one step above us. I thought maybe they'd have the wider reach, and maybe you've heard from other folks who are doing similar things or have been told not to do those things, so we can kind of avoid it.
Did you validate that 50,000 for contracted psychological services? You validated that?
I have the number in there. I'm not sure what you mean by validating. Is that the contracted number?
No, I mean, it's 50,000. That's okay to use money for that, the ESSER's money.
Yes, you can do that. And one of the nice things about that is I checked to make sure it wasn't just related to mental health support. It could be for evaluations too, because we're going to see the potential of higher numbers of that due to the loss.
Wasn't it $500 an evaluation, Dan? $500 for an evaluation for the contracted services.
You probably know more about the actual contract than I do.
So you could refer 100 kids. You could refer 100 kids for evaluation.
Yes, I hate to sound silly here, but I don't know as much about the actual contract side of it as I do the money we budgeted for it. My special education knowledge on that is a little lower now. I don't do that anymore, but
yeah.
But I put that in there as a figure that was recommended. You guys saw that information that I posted, so that you can kind of look through what everybody recommended as their top priorities, including some very important screening tools, of which we've already gotten. I'm real excited about that. And if you think of questions, anybody is welcome to email me at any time. I will answer them gladly. If it's getting late and you want me to stop talking, I get that. If you want to email me, if you think of something later, feel free to reach out to me and I will answer them. No problem.
One of the items you have to look at with ESSER's money, Dr. Clara has addressed the 20% provision using ESSER's too. And I know some of that 20% provision is for evidence-based interventions for summer learning and summer enrichment. The same restriction applies to ESSER's 3. You must reserve not less than 20% of the total. So figure 600,000 or more will have to be tied to address learning loss through the implementation of evidence-based interventions, such as summer learning or summer enrichment, extended day programs, comprehensive after-school programs, extended school year programs, to ensure that such interventions respond to the student's academic, social, and emotional needs, address the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on on various student subgroups. So considering that ESSER 3 has a longer run out, you could use this 600,000 to continue your summer programs, your summer enrichments for the summer of 22 and the summer of 23. But again, you have to tie 600 or more $1,000 of that $3+ million to just this specific category. So, yes.
That's correct. Yes. Thank you, Ms. Mornell. That's correct.
No, you're I'm just reading. So the more we read, the more we learn about these new grants, and what the intent is to get students. I'll use my layman's language. Back up to speed. To to make up for, what has happened to them over the last year plus in their learning, get them back on track. So, very important to consider those and to tie those into your next two budgets, because you have a longer period in which to use the ESSERS 3 money. So I don't see a compelling need to rush ESSERS 3 for the 21-22 budget, but that's just my opinion. If you can tie ESSERS 3 to some of these capital improvement projects, then of course maybe you want to do that. But the way we're reading this is, it doesn't look like those capital improvement projects meet the needs of what this money was intended to do. But that's all I'll say on that.
Does anybody have anything else?
If I could, please.
Sure.
The question was asked about facilities, and it really is confusing. There's one that deals specifically with ventilation, which Mr. Marnell has been discussing. Then there's one that I would call COVID and other types of medical issues, subsection O of the actual statute, school facility repairs and improvements. Now comes the catch: to enable operation of schools to reduce risk of virus transmission and exposure to environmental health hazards, and to support student health needs. So, and then there's another one that deals with other activities that are necessary to maintain operation of and continuity of services in local educational agencies and continuing to employ existing staff. So you almost have to set up separate buckets and then try to figure out what possibly might go into these different buckets. And if you have a specific fit, you probably want to go into that bucket and save the more generalized one for, something else. But as your previous speakers have been saying, I think this is going to be a multi-year, it obviously is a multi-year situation, and it may not be an immediate direct impact on further reduction of your deficit for 21-22, unless we get some real strong guidance in the next few weeks. Thank you.
I would like to reiterate that Dr. Claire and I, especially Dr. Claire, we are seeking those answers. So hopefully we will have some answers to those questions.
I just had a question about the actual budget. Even from this evening, we still have the opportunity to make adjustments to the budget going forward. Is that correct?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
Is there any other discussion on this? Okay, resolution to confirm selection date for final budget adoption and approve advertising.
Southmoreland School Board hereby authorizes and directs that the date for the final adoption of the 2021-2022 general fund budget shall be on the following date and shall be advertised as a special voting meeting therefore and for the general business purposes. June 24th, 2021, as originally approved on December 7th, 2020, as Section A of the resolution for fiscal year 2021-2022 Act 1 budget process. The time shall be 7 p.m. local prevailing time at the Southmoreland Senior High School auditorium located at 2351 Route 981, Alberton, Pennsylvania 15612, and by live streaming on YouTube at https://youtube.com/user/Southmoreland School. and the secretary is authorized to advertise in a form approved by the solicitor at least 10 days in advance and the treasurer to pay therefor. Sorry about that.
I need a motion.
I will make that motion.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes,
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Dr. Fike,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Resolution for Southmoreland's proposed general fund final budget and posting Southmoreland's 2021-2022 fiscal year proposed final general fund budget with tax increase within the Act 1 index.
Approval of option A, resolution for Southmoreland's proposed general fund final budget and posting Southmoreland's 2021-2022 fiscal year proposed final general fund budget with tax increase within the Act 1 index. The recommended action, approval of posting a proposed fiscal year 2021-2022 general fund budget of Southmoreland School District with the Act 1 of June 27th, 2006 as amended tax increase within the Acts 1 index. Now therefore, on motion of and second by, be it resolved that the Southmoreland School Board hereby authorizes and directs that the attached proposed final general fund budget of the Southmoreland School District for the 2021-2022 fiscal year with expenditures of $33,688,152 and revenues of $32,383,359 and the use of assigned fund balance of $736,000 and unassigned fund balance $571,793 be the proposed final budget of the Southmoreland School District. The final general fund budget is subject to such provisions as changes as appears advisable to the Board of School Directors at the time of adoption of the fiscal final budget. This would require millage at 85.94 for Westmoreland County and 17.4419 for Fayette County, as currently set by using the multi-county rebalancing based methodology of School Code Section 672.1A1 in the Pennsylvania Department of Education's CFRS-GFB General Fund Budget application and the $5 local service tax in all existing Act 511 taxes. The proposed tax millage rates are subject to change for the final budget adoption using the multi-county rebalancing based methodology of School Code Section 672.1A1 of the Public School Code of 1949 as amended in the CFRS-GFB application. The Southmoreland School Board further directs that, number one, the business manager is to post the proposed final general fund budget, for the 2021-2022 fiscal year as presented for at least 20 days prior to the date set for the final adoption on the form required by the Pennsylvania Department of Education and be available for public inspection by posting it on the Southmoreland website by having physical copies available at the business office, 100 Scotty Way, Scottsdale, PA 15683 offices, and by having physical copies. And number two, the business manager is to prepare and the president to sign a certification of use document to the Department of Education. Therefore, upon passage of this resolution, and number 3, the Southmoreland School Board authorizes and directs the secretary to obtain the necessary advertisements for the final general fund budget at least 10 days in advance of the date set for final adoption at a public meeting in the form prepared by the solicitor as attached.
I need a motion.
I will make the motion.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Discussion.
I would like to say something. I would like to speak directly to the Southmoreland School District taxpayers and tell them why I am not going to vote for this budget. This budget already contains more than $500,000 in increased property taxes. This is money we don't have yet. We don't have it. We're already calling that income. And on a number of occasions, I've asked for a budget with no tax increase. I never got one. That's okay. I'm just one board member. I'm the only one that wanted it. But if you combine that with the present deficit of $1,304,793, we have nearly a $1.9 million budget deficit. Our present unassigned fund balance is $2.3 million. If we have to use all of that fund balance to pay for our excess cost, we will be lucky to have a $1 million fund balance, which is basically what we have in savings. There are several things that I have spoken about loud and clear. Earlier discussion today, you need to know, was to talk about spending from $928,300 to a range of $1,328,300. And that would depend on the cost of roofs and other added costs that may occur. Other spending concerns, one more time this year, we gave out nearly $450,000 to retiring teachers. We're going to replace all of them, if not more. I'm not even sure. We might be replacing more. My favorite was the speaker that the board voted to bring in, and we paid
Dr.
her
Dr. Fike, are you
a minute, $100 a minute we paid.
Dr.
Speaking to the taxpayers.
Dr. Fike, you're out of order. I have a question for you. Do you have a question about this resolution, or are you making a political statement?
I'm discussing this resolution.
Okay.
The figures are in there.
Does anybody else have?
Want me to read the figures?
Does anybody else?
Figures, Michelle. I can.
Anybody else have any questions?
Sorry, taxpayers, you're not allowed to hear what I have to say.
Does anybody else have any questions? This budget is still a work in progress. I just want to make that clear to the public. We still have the opportunity to go back in and remove things from this budget. Does anybody else on the board have any other questions pertaining to this resolution?
Well, and I think we should make the statement that this budget does include things that we're not even sure we're going to be able to do next year, like the track and the tennis court. So it includes things that we're not even sure we're going to spend that money on yet, but we have to pass the preliminary tonight. Is that correct?
Yes, and we still need to discuss some things. Some numbers on these, some dollar figures on these items had not come in until recently, and we're still not even sure those are the correct numbers. So yeah, there's lots of discussion still to be had on this budget.
And I do want to reiterate what Mr. Marnell said earlier, is that although we don't want to have to raise taxes at all, I truly don't. What he's saying is that the overall tax increase for the average household will be $48 for the year for Westmoreland County. And I think it's important to remember that it's, and while that's a lot of money, while it is a lot of money, it's still not as much as it could be. And if we had just done this every year, a little tax increase over those 10 years whenever they didn't, I don't think we'd be in this position right now. I think that we would have stayed with the expenses and how the world is working, and we wouldn't have to raise taxes to the full amount. But I feel like our hands are tied with this, to be honest, because if we didn't raise taxes, we'd be way more over budget than we are now. And it's unfortunate.
$49 a year forever, forever. Put the forever in there.
So this budget right now at the 1.304,783 and take out the $830,000 in capital improvements, and we still have $474,783 deficit. Take out the tax increase, and we'd be still at almost $1 million deficit. So there's a necessity for the tax increase, sadly. I would like to see no tax increase either, but that's not, there's no way for us to meet our increased expenses without a tax increase and still provide the same level of services that we are providing now.
You voted for them.
So is there any other discussion? Okay, roll call.
Mrs. Raymond?
I'm muted. Never
Yes.
mind.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Kristen Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Dr. Fike?
No.
Mrs. O'Rear?
Pass.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 6 yes, 1 no, 1 abstain, 1 absent.
Approve holding and advertising for public hearing on LERTA with Scottsdale Borough Council.
Number one, the Board of School Directors of Southmoreland School District approves holding a public hearing in conjunction with Scottsdale Borough Council beginning at 7 p.m. on June 7th, 2021 at the Scottsdale Firemen's Club, 405 Porter Avenue, Scottsdale, PA 15683, for the purposes of hearing recommendations and public comment regarding the enactment of ordinance and resolutions for the establishment of a LERTA program in Scottsdale Borough in Southmoreland School District, all as set forth in the attached public notice. This may constitute a school board's public meeting under the Right to Know Act because of possible deliberations, which are the discussion of agency business held for the purpose of a decision. Number two, the school board authorizes public notice substantially in the form of the public notice attached hereto as may be approved by the solicitor and directs the advertisement by the board secretary and payment by the treasurer. Number three, school board members, superintendent, board secretary, solicitor, and business manager. And number four, school board is not responsible for live streaming.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Discussion.
I'd like to say 3 words: Chrysler, Volkswagen, and Sony.
Is there any other discussion? And I'd just like to say that those things do not relate to what this LERTA is. And there's information within here that you could read. A LERTA is only based on improvements made to the property after the property is purchased. And what this is supposed to do is bring some businesses back into Scottsdale and allow them to make improvements on their building without paying taxes just over, I think it's a period of 2 years, but there's different programs to go with. Is there any other discussion?
And what we're voting on tonight is just to have the meeting, right? We're not approving anything. We're just voting to have the meeting.
That was my question.
Hearing.
Yeah.
Hearing.
Yeah, you're just having a hearing.
And it's for all the public, like, this is the announcement for the public to come to the hearing. They can
Yes.
come to the hearing, correct?
Yes.
Or, okay.
And I believe that Scottsdale is holding the, go ahead, Christy, I'm sorry.
No, Scottsdale Borough is the one that chose that date and advertised it. It's technically their public hearing, but we go as well because it affects us. The reason we are advertising it is so that if there's more than a quorum of school board members there and we want to talk about it, make a decision, then we have advertised it so the public knows that we might be doing that and they can attend, and we're not breaking the Sunshine Rule Act.
It's not so much that you would even be voting and making the decision, it's that you would be quote deliberating about it. So I was super cautious.
Right.
And decided that the safe thing to do would be to advertise it. But actually it's Borough Council, which takes this, information from the public, or I suppose school board members could also provide input. But it's really meant to get to members of the public as to what kind of plan to do. And then Borough Council, as the governing body, is the initial body to pass a resolution that deals with the boundaries. So just as we had that discussion before about attempting to do a LRTA with East Huntington Township, it's just that they're already, taking their first step towards having this public hearing.
Does anybody else have any discussion?
I have a question for Dr. Fike. Dr. Fike, what's similar about the LRTA program that you referenced, the Volkswagen, the Chrysler, Volkswagen, and Sony plan? How are they similar? I'm curious.
As soon as the time period is up and they've gotten all the free taxes and tax breaks, they're going to pull out like the last three did. I've lived it. They've done it every single time. They took advantage of the tax breaks, and as soon as that was over, they were gone. This is only 5 years.
I'm asking you specifically what properties of LRTA are similar to that program that you were talking about.
It doesn't matter. What it is a system by which you come in, you improve a property, you get tax breaks on our dollar. You get we waive the taxes. We waive 100% of the property taxes for the first 2 years.
No, Dr. Fike, you're wrong.
That is
It
incorrect.
doesn't waive any existing property tax. The only thing this waives is improvement to the building. So if you come in and help to restore downtown Scottsdale, you get a tax break on painting the facade of your building, putting in a handicap accessibility. You get a 100% tax break on that for 2 years.
That's right.
You don't get a tax break on your whole building. Whatever taxes they're paying right this very moment, they will still pay when they purchase the building. It's only improvements. If they
That
make
comes out of our school property taxes.
Having looked at
Those improvements.
No, it doesn't. It's out of the buyer's pocket. And it's 100% tax-free of the improvements for those 2 years or whatever stages they have in their article. They still have to pay the taxes on the building.
Define tax-free.
If there are properties,
Sure.
there may be properties that currently aren't having any taxes paid on them. And so someone could come in and they would purchase a property that they would still be responsible for their base taxes.
Of an assessed value.
They're just getting the couple of years not paying on the improved value. Like we're not giving up anything because we're not getting it. Like it's not money that we're getting now, so we're not losing it.
That's your rationale.
Okay.
So can I
Not getting it. No, it's real. That's what LRTA is.
Here's maybe the rush.
Can I say something, please?
Yes.
As an example, we may have a business in town who currently pays $10,000 in taxes. They may want to do some improvements to their building, which would make, after it's assessed again, because it has to be turned in. I mean, they have to say that they've done this. Then the next year, then instead of making $10,000, they've made these improvements, and now they have to pay $15,000 in taxes. So a lot of businesses are saying, well, we're not going to make improvements because we don't want to pay the extra taxes. So what this does is for those 2 years, they still pay their $10,000 in taxes. They just don't pay the extra $5,000 in taxes. And the way I look at it is if they then pull out of one of those storefronts, at least they've updated it before they left.
Christy, I thought it was only for vacant commercial properties.
No.
Our existing business is going to get it too.
Yes, it's very possible. Nothing has been decided yet. That's what they're going to talk about in the public meeting.
We got the list. We got the list, and they were all vacant. They were all vacant properties in Scottsdale. The list I got.
No.
They specifically gave us a list of vacant properties just so we knew which ones were vacant. That wasn't a list saying these are the only properties that would be able to do this.
So
But even if,
going to get it, any business. Okay, that's good. That's
Just
good.
even if a property, Christy, maybe you can answer this to give some clarification. If a property is vacant, such as something like, just say, let's say the Mennonite building is vacant, and somebody purchased that building, the current taxes on that building are $10,000. They would still pay $10,000 in taxes. If they made any improvements to the building, that would be tax-free for possibly 2 years.
That is exactly my understanding.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions?
We'll see.
Okay, so I need roll call.
Mrs. Rhodes,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Dr. Fike,
No.
Mrs. O'Rear,
Yes.
Polakowski,
Yes to have a meeting.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 7 yes, 1 no, 1 absent.
East Huntington Township, Florida.
There is a document attached which is very similar to what we're talking about. It is the resolution that was passed by East Huntington to schedule a hearing. And Dave, I don't know if you have anything else that you could elaborate on.
I have not received any notice yet of when it will be.
Right. Southmoreland School District ED 2020-2021, number 101, approved separation agreement and release and accept resignation.
Be it resolved that the Southmoreland Board of School Directors approves and accepts the separation agreement and release in the matter of Southmoreland School District ED 2020-2021, number 101, and resulting settlement of grievance arbitration with Southmoreland Education Association, therefore in the confidential executive content document attached hereto, and if approved, accepts the accompanying letter of resignation also in the confidential executive content document attached hereto, effective immediately, and authorizes and directs the president to execute and the secretary to attest thereto.
I need a motion.
I will make the motion.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Dr. Fike,
No.
Mrs. O'Rear,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 7 yes, 1 no, 1 absent.
Agreement for architectural services for Eccles Architecture Group for district paving and track and/or tennis courts.
Board approves desired option corresponding to type of project desired. The Southmoreland School Board of Directors approves entering into an agreement with Eccles Architecture Group of Newcastle, Pennsylvania, to provide professional services as described in the letter proposal dated May 18, 2021, and attached hereto, with the additional engineering service fees for the subcontract engineer HF Lentz Company will be billed as reimbursable expense and attached for the following fee proposals options, and authorizes and directs the president to sign and the board secretary to attest thereto. The fee proposals are given the multiple proposals, the board is to choose which proposal from 1 through 4, up to 3 separate items it wants to choose without a group discount, or number 5, which is all 1 through 3 with discounts, but not number 4 for track, or number 6, which is all 1 through 4 with track and with discounts.
You need a motion? So, Mr. Patonic, can we discuss this a little bit first? Because the motion is going to have to include which option we are choosing.
That's correct.
Mr. Polakowski, at this point, do we think that, I know we'd like to get moving with the pavements, because if we don't do something with the paving, we're going to have more damage probably, and that will become more costly. I think these other items are still all up for discussion still, and we need a lot more information. So do we just want to approve what would be the paving this evening? Would that be Buildings and Grounds recommendation?
Yes, definitely for the paving. And I have a question for Dave. You know, you were discussing the track with Mark. So you're saying you don't want to use co-stars yourself. You would like Eccles to help the district decide on specifications with that project, is what I sort of got from what you were saying.
Well, if I had to make a decision tonight, yes. And I don't know whether you want to defer judgment on this. Well, I don't want to decide what thickness track you get or what material. If you want to, in effect, postpone the decision on that part, that's another possibility. Or, I mean, you can either choose them to do that, or you can say, no, we're not going to do them. And in which case, we're probably going to have some discussions about whether to seek proposals from other people who are on co-stars and what kind of substance and thickness and those kinds of things to choose. Because right now you have one choice, which I've indicated to you. And the problem is the way they described it, it doesn't exactly fit the number, the co-stars number. So that's muddled right now. And it's causing me concern about directly proceeding to that until that's clarified, if it can be. I'm sorry I can't be more specific, but this is a result of getting this additional information, which I thought you should have.
Exactly. So my question is, whenever we get proposals from people from co-stars with the track, they're going to say what they're going to do.
That's what I don't like about this.
Okay.
That we're not telling them, you know, we want at least this, this, and this.
But if they come back with their proposals with different options, I don't know anything about it. Mill the surface of the track off and then put down new rubber. If one company's putting down half an inch of rubber and the other one's putting down 9/16, is that some way that we as a district can compare things, or you just want to use an engineer or use Eccles for that type of deciphering those bids that they're going to give us?
Well, I mean, you can either bid it, which will take more time, in which case you can definitely do that. Or you can, have, the architect and engineers look at all those different contracts and say, well, we want at least this thickness, this kind of material, these kinds of characteristics, and invite all those, invite people to submit those proposals, is the way I understand it, with the way the system works and the way Mr. Scheller was presenting it tonight. I'm not making you do it. I'm just trying to explain to you that you know,
I may be under.
we're not engineers.
I may be under the wrong impression, but I felt like one of the advantages of going through CoStars was not to then have to use the added expense of having Eccles do all of that extra stuff. I mean, it seems to me if we're going through CoStar, or excuse me, if we're going to go with Eccles, then we should just go through the all-out bid process. I thought the advantage of CoStars is we wouldn't need that extra third party to kind of be deciphering and sorting through all of that stuff for us.
No, there are other advantages with CoStars. There is some savings on the advertising aspect and possibly some time there. And there's also already a list of those contracts that are available on the CoStars website. So you know, there's a potential universe to pick from, and conceivably, target qualified installers. So you have that aspect of it also. Go ahead.
Being that we're thinking about using CoStars, is it possible for Mr. Basham to reach out to a couple of these other CoStar companies, ask them for proposals as well, see how close they are, and I mean, see if they're all basically offering you the same thing. And then if
that's on the website. See, each one of them will have in these documents their own particular name for their kind of system, and then some of the characteristics that go with it. Okay. Now that's where I'm having the concern about whether, I as an attorney or the board, just unfettered with, any other input, should be deciding, well, okay, is there a big difference between a 1/2 inch and 3/4 of an inch? Well, there may be. Just as a really simple example. But the documentation, in the lists of the kinds of materials, is in the CoStars website. I was hoping that we wouldn't have to deal with this tonight, but it came about because originally I thought this was going to be a spring project, and then I was sort of taken by surprise that, okay, it can be a summer project, and that means then rushing forward with all of these additional considerations.
I realize that they're offering us a discount if we decide on everything all at once, but I personally don't feel ready to commit to anything beyond the paving, quite honestly. That's
why this is set up this way. You can decide your priorities. Okay, you really need paving, so you're going to go forward with paving for sure. And it may be if in the near future you get additional information and you want to move forward with that other one, I would think that if it's in with a relatively short period of time, maybe not 6 months from now, but you could then choose another option. It also seems rather apparent to me that, there's grave concern about the tennis courts and whether that should be lumped in with this. I don't want to be presumptuous, but that's from, just talking with some members.
So are we looking at proposal 1 and 2 then for both sections of paving?
Those are paving, yes.
And that's what we're looking at doing, Mr. Polakowski, is both?
Yes.
Okay. Does somebody want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion for 1 and 2.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Discussion? Is there any discussion? Okay, roll call.
Dr. Fike?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear?
Pass.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
7 yes, motion carries. 1 abstain, 1 absent.
ESER's 2 expenditures.
I'm sorry, Michelle. I have a question for Dave. So
Yes.
Mark said that he's going to give us a proposal to do the testing on the paving and the tennis courts, and he's going to lump those all together no matter what we voted on tonight. Was that sort of clear to everybody or just me?
I understood that, yes.
Okay, just double checking.
And theoretically, you could, I mean, still, if you wanted to, I mean, you could either add giving them the tennis courts, or at some point you could decide, no, we're not going to do that. But I would like some direction then as to what you do want done in regards to the, I'm sorry, the track I'm speaking of.
There's no testing on the track.
No, I'm not talking about testing,
Okay.
about whether or not to kind of go it alone on this or whether to involve them. That's really what I'm saying.
I understand.
Okay.
So the proposal for the testing would be at our next board meeting, June 10th, right? Is that when he would have that for us?
I don't know.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'm sorry. Any other comments or questions? ESER's 2 expenditures.
Board is asked to consider all of the potential ESER 2 expenditures listed in the attached document.
Okay, I need a motion.
Make the motion.
I need a second.
I'll second it.
Discussion.
I have a question for Dr. Clara. On page 3 of this document, it says that any LEA that receives ESSER funds must, within 30 days of receiving the funds, make publicly available on its website a plan for the safe return to in-person instruction and continuity of services. Before making the plan publicly available, the LEA must seek public comment on the plan. How will you do that how will you do that?
So, Dr. Fike, when we were required to do our original plan for return to school, we would be updating that one following the new guidelines. If there are adoptions or changes we have to make, we're required to do that plan again. I think we were just notified to open the new school year. So we would have, you remember when we did the original plan last year? We were asked to have a return to school plan with all the mitigation strategies
You can
in it.
use those. You can use those.
We're actually being asked to do it again to update because, again, maybe not in our area so much, but in other places or certainly across the country, there are some districts that are considering not returning even in the fall yet. So when you're looking at federal funding, they want to know, okay, if that happens, what would you do? So the Commonwealth requires us to have a reopening plan again in the event that there would be an issue and be able to spell out those details. So I'm glad you asked that because it's actually not mentioned in the planning part of it for us, but we are required to go over that if we were unfortunate in finding out that there would be another outbreak.
That was just released to us today, actually.
Yeah, I read about that yesterday, and then more information came out today. So it seems like they kind of have the rules as we go.
Dan, what would summer enrichment be?
So what we're looking for enrichment purposes, I think we really look more for learning loss and enrichment, like closing of gaps. So I haven't really put as much emphasis on kids who are already performing at a high level and what we do to move them forward as I, at least from my thinking, worked on kids who we thought we had some significant losses. So I could be honest with you, I didn't put a lot of effort in the K-5 part into enrichment. More of our efforts are going to be for mitigating the uneven instructional year that we had with the different modes and the ways that the kids were in or out.
there any other discussion?
I want, if I could, Mrs. Williams, I just want to say thank you to the folks who were part of that committee. That was hard, and we had people from all of our buildings who sat in on it. Some board members sat in on it. Some administrators, some parents. We talked about this several times, try to get to like the priorities, right? What do we need to focus on to get open? And I appreciate everybody's efforts in picking their priorities and making cases for them. Thank you for doing that. So I can't take credit for this plan. It was really a collaborative effort of a lot of people who were thinking.
Thank you. Any other comments or discussion? Roll call.
Who made the second?
I'm sorry.
I did. Peggy.
Mr. Polakowski.
Thank you. Mrs. O'Rear? You're muted.
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond?
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Carson?
Yes.
Dr. Pike?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
I'd just like to thank everybody that dedicated a lot of time to that outside of the school day. There were board members as well as teachers, and there was public input on that as well. Southmoreland School District trip and fall hazard removal.
Board of School Directors of Southmoreland School District accepts the proposal of precision state sidewalks attached here to as follows. There's a list of options that the board will be asked to pick.
I had a quick question. Is the money for this in this year's current budget, or is this something that's from next year's budget?
I do believe there was some money budgeted. Jim, you might have the exact figure.
Well, first off, I put in next year's budget $20,000 for sidewalk repair projects. However, in the existing budget, we have as follows. At the high school, we have $24,650 to go towards entrance and exit paving and drainage. And here at the elementary school complex, $19,325 for various pavement sealing and repairs. So there is money right now. If this work could be started and done by late June, we could pay it out of this year's funds. If that's
And do we have a timeline on when this work can happen? I feel like I've seen it, but I can't remember.
Charlie, you there?
Yeah, he told me after we contact him, it would be probably 2 to 3 weeks before he got to it and 5 days to complete it.
Okay.
So that could be done over the summertime when students aren't here?
Yes.
I have a comment. If you guys remember when Mark was talking, he mentioned this a little bit. It was the grinding of the concrete. So I think in his proposal, he was going to look at some things with this. He mentioned, what did he mention? The rebar and the welded wire mesh might come out when this happens. So I don't know if Mark is getting paid to look at options for this. Should we vote on this tonight or what? I'm just, I don't know if Dave has an opinion on that. That's sort of what Mark was saying when he talked about the concrete work. I know, Charlie, you want to get this done and get it over with out of your hair, but if he's, I don't know what he's going to do. I actually forget, but he said that he had an issue with the rebar coming out when it's ground down, but
It does seem like, knowing that there can be a fairly quick turnaround, knowing that we could, if we decided to go this route and they could be able to do it in, a few weeks, we could put this off for a little bit and still give it the opportunity to be done in the summertime when students aren't there. So I would be okay with tabling it for now and getting a little bit more information.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if somebody could reach out to Mark and see actually what kind of research he's going to do for this kind of work. I just don't want to hold it up. So if we do decide to get this done, it's not going to get done by summer.
Is there any issue with us getting on somebody's schedule on their list to come in and do this?
No.
Okay.
I think Mr. Basham just said it would take 3 weeks for him to get to it and 5 days to do it.
Correct.
What is the difference between like this and what we heard earlier when we are they two separate proposals?
This is for the sidewalks. The other was, we talked about paving. So driveways versus the trip hazards. And I think my concern with doing it this way, I mean, obviously, I'm sorry, Mr. Basham, I have many problems with this, but he talked about the freeze thaw, which would only create more problems for us as far as trip hazards go, if that was an issue. Now, I'm not saying maybe this is done in a way that that's not an issue, but maybe some places where the trip hazard is more significant, there might be that chance of that getting down into the rebar or the wire mesh and exposing it to the elements again. So I just think maybe we need a little more information, like Mr. Polakowski said, and maybe when Mr. Petonic is speaking with Eccles, we could discuss the sidewalks again a little bit, and we could be prepared to do something on June 10th if that's the direction we're going to go.
We received an alternate proposal for new work instead of this kind. Wasn't it like $70,000 or something like that, or $100,000?
The difference here insofar as sidewalks are concerned is that if you did the traditional method of dealing with sidewalks, you're probably going to take out large sections rather than try to fix within a section because of the nature of working with cement. You're from what I understand, you're either not going to get the proper kind of setting and adhesion or have just the potential for it to start cracking again. And I apologize if that's not perfectly accurate. This method, and I'd like Mr. Basham to join in, and I'm not against, this getting more information, by the way. I'm just trying to answer your question. But it was just from my, being there at that meeting and looking at the literature supplied by Precision, that they have a different method of, I don't even know how to describe it, but they have a special tool, and then to draw off areas of cracking and things like that. I myself don't completely understand it. I'll admit that. I mean, this is the material that we have, and the desirability of it is exactly that. That instead of doing the traditional, break it up, pull out the old concrete, put in all new concrete for a huge section, whenever you may have a rather small section that just has the difficulty, you have a drastic difference in cost.
I'm not
I know
denying,
Charlie, I don't know if Mr. Basham can add more. I'm not a cement expert.
and I'm not denying that that's true. I was just listening to what Mr. Eccles said, or what Mr. Scheller said from Eccles, is that you're risking, and again, he's the engineer. I'm not an engineer. He's saying that you risk the freeze thaw, which would cause more damage to the section. I'm not opposed to saving money and going this route, but we're sitting here, discussing and debating a 1/16 of an inch in AstroTurf and needing to spend money on Eccles. And now Mr. Scheller is giving us his opinion, and we're just going to say that it doesn't matter. I mean, that makes no sense to me, but
those are valid points. I agree. Those are valid points.
So I just was asking for, and I think Mr. Polakowski was asking for Mr. Scheller to provide more information or us to be able to just think this process through a little bit more. And I don't think the difference was $100,000 or even $70,000. There was a price difference, but I don't think it was that high. Do you remember what that was, Mr. Basham?
We were at 20,000 conventional just at the high school.
Okay.
The precision safe sidewalks basically just gets us in compliance, up to code with our trip hazards. And that was about 20 grand total.
Can I make a motion to table this, please?
I will second that.
Any other discussion? Do we need a roll call or can we just do a voice vote here, Mr.
Voice vote.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 2022 marching band trip proposal.
Board is asked to consider the approval of a 2022 marching band trip to Walt Disney World and some other locations in Florida from Thursday, March 17th, 2022 to Sunday, March 20th, 2022. The itinerary is provided.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Discussion?
How's this funded?
They fundraise for it, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Any other discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Dr. Fike,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear,
Absolutely.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Custodial supervisor. I need a motion to table this.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
I'll
Second.
second it.
All those in favor, or I'm sorry, discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Middle school boys soccer assistant coach.
Board is asked to consider, on the recommendation of the athletic director, Chris Pollard, as middle school boys soccer assistant coach, supplemental salary of $2,605.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Dr. Fike,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
High school girls volunteer soccer coach.
Board is asked to approve Allie Bloom as a volunteer high school girls soccer coach for the 2021-2022 season. Recommended by the head coach, and clearances are current and on file.
I'll make the motion.
I need a second.
I second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Carson,
Yes.
Dr. Fike,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rear,
Yes.
Mr. Polakowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Raymond,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Motion carries 8 yes, 1 absent.
Okay, we need to take a 5-minute break before citizens' comments. Do I need a motion for that, Mr. Potonic, or can I just?
At what point can I ask?
Is there's one more item here though? Or did I miss it?
I think
Did you just do girls soccer coach or not?
Yes.
Yeah.
did.
Yes, we did.
Okay, I'm sorry. I lost track of the other one. So
I have
if you're going to take citizens' comment, you need to reset.
I
Yes.
have a question.
Okay.
I had 2 more people contacted me and asked me if we are teaching the 1619 CRT curriculum. I had asked about it last time. What shall I tell them?
We are not, Dr. Fike.
Okay, I need to tell them. Thank you.
So I need a motion for a 5-minute recess.
I make the motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Remember to mute yourself.
I need a motion to go back into session.
I'll make the motion.
I second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, do we have any citizen comment?
Mr. Jan Kiefer.
Go ahead.
Hi, good evening, Jan Kiefer, 628 Homestead Avenue, Scottsdale. I'd like to wish Mrs. O'Rear well on her appointment tonight, and I appreciate her work that she's going to be doing. And I think Michelle or Mrs. O'Rear and I would agree that what we did tonight was a healthy exercise for the school and for the community. It showed participation and interest in people who will step up when the call is made. It would be nice if, before you have these periods, you would broadcast the number. You know, first-time people who are watching will just show a genuineness on your part. The question is, was Walmart given an incentive? And the real question is Walmart what you would consider a good charity to give an incentive? During the comment period at the beginning last week, I asked a question about the chair's role in the public comment request, and I didn't get an answer, and not through the week or anything. So I was wondering if I need to repeat that question or if I could get an answer now. And if I need to repeat the question next week at the beginning and end, I'll do that till I get an answer. Do you want me to stop and answer so I can have an answer to what you say, or are you just going to let me run out of time? So let me repeat the question then, just for the record then. What I want to find out is this: when Mrs. O'Rear had difficulty as a result of her inability to get through during the meeting, was she using the 2065 number? Are you listening, Mr. Patonic, or was it a pre-meeting dropped email as the chair maintained it was, or was it something else? I might have egg in my face, I don't know, but it's a simple, straightforward question on a subject of public comment, which I am active on every meeting. So this happened at the end of the meeting, at 2:47 mark, during the comment period. And I'm not going to quote what the chair said, but just clear it up and let's move on from that. So that's my end of the night, and it's been a long night, and it shows how much you guys really do work. I would have to come home and sit in the yard and pet the neighbor's dog and have a nice dinner. So good night.
Hi, Jan.
Are there any other comments?
No, I'm sorry, there are not.
Okay, that's all right.
Can I make a motion to adjourn, please?
Yes, please.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Mrs. Tarzan, Mr. Masha, Mr. Patonic, I need to, I don't know if we can stay on this and he can shut everything down, or if we need another session to go into.
Okay.
I
Good
can
night,
make
everyone.
Good night.
All right. Congratulations, Mrs. O'Rear.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Is this still being publicly broadcast?
I will turn that on.
He's gonna stop it.
Okay. I mean, people could stay. It's just that the public can't stay. Yeah.
Do
Mrs.